Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to History Babble. And today I thought it'd be good to talk about Haiti. I know we've been seeing a lot of news lately about Haiti, and we've seen many videos and images of the violence in the streets, particularly gang violence. We have seen images of foreigners rushing to leave the country. We saw recently that the United States had to pull out of Haiti or pull out the embassy out of Haiti. And generally, we've seen images of Haiti being a failed state. We've had the assassination of President Jovenel Moise. We've had the earthquake that happened some years back that devastated the country. And indeed, Haiti is one of the poorest, if not the poorest, and most destabilized country in the Western Hemisphere. However, it's a little known fact that Haiti was once the richest colony in America, and it has a past that belies its current state. So today I thought it'd be good that we look at Haiti in its colonial period prior to their revolution and independence. Haiti, or Saint-Domingue, as it was called, was a French colony before it achieved independence in 1804. And this is why Haiti is a French-speaking country today, and why any look at Haiti's past must involve looking at French colonial history. Haiti, which I shall now also refer to as Saint-Domingue, it occupied the western third part of the island of Hispaniola, and indeed the name Saint-Domingue is derived from Santo Domingo, which is the name of the then Spanish colony, which occupied the eastern two-thirds side of the island of Hispaniola, which we now know as the Dominican Republic. Now, the most astute of you would know that the capital of that country is Santo Domingo. This city and the name is actually in honor of Saint Dominic, which, pretty interesting to note, is the patron saint of astronomers and natural scientists in the Roman Catholic theology. Now, it might seem strange that Saint-Domingue was the most wealthy colony in the Americas, and I'm not exaggerating this, believe me, but it literally was an economic cow of a colony with its massive production of sugar, which is the original white gold. At the time, the Europeans, they were in love with the stuff, and they really could not get enough of it. Now, to understand why or how this colony became so successful, we must first understand what led to the creation of this colony and the circumstances in the wider world that affected its development. Spain claimed the entire island of Hispaniola in 1492, but they only settled the eastern side. In 1625, the French, they settled Tortuga, which is just off the northwestern coast of Haiti. The initial French settlers, they were called the Boucans, from which the English word buccaneers derived, and these buccaneers lived off the land and engaged in piracy. And in fact, this is where we get the popular characterization of Tortuga as a pirate haven. French colonization in Haiti was solidified in the 1697 Treaty of Ryswick, and around this time, England, France, Spain, and the Dutch, they all sought to dominate the Caribbean. It was valuable for the cultivation of not just sugar, but also cotton, tobacco, coffee, and indigo. And these commodities, they relied heavily on slave labor from West Africa. They were then sold in Europe, and the profits funded manufactured goods, which were in turn sold to West African slavers to purchase even more slaves. Now, the Europeans, as a part of their wider dynastic and territorial struggles, they sought to take these valuable possessions from each other, and it underscores just how valuable these colonies were when, for example, the British public responded with outrage when Britain traded the French island of Guadeloupe for the French territory of Canada in the treaty ending the 7 Years' War. Saint-Domingue produced large amounts of commodities and made France rich. It supplied a large part of France's overseas trade and could maintain a competitive advantage over their contemporaries, such as England. Eric Williams, in his book From Columbus to Castro, quotes, "The French colonies, in addition, were the principal market for French manufactures. French colonial imports employed 164,081 tons of shipping, navigated by 33,400 seamen." There were several reasons for this. One being that Saint-Domingue had an immense amount of fertile land. Compared to other islands like Jamaica, Cuba, or Barbados, the lands were put under cultivation relatively late, so that the soils were not as exhausted as were in other colonies. Thus, Saint-Domingue could produce more on less. Another aspect which ensured Saint-Domingue's economic advantage was the colony's intensive use of slave labor. This colony imported a lot of slaves. Additionally, it gave harsh treatment towards slaves, which is illustrated by the very high mortality rates on the plantations. This also meant that Saint-Domingue had a higher proportion of slaves who were born in Africa, rather than slaves born in the colony and therefore in bondage. African slaves were known to be more restive and aggressive. The French colonials considered it much more profitable to work their slaves to literal death and replenish them with fresh bodies from Africa. In 1685, the French government promulgated a Code Noir, or Black Code, but this did little to regulate the punishments the slaves could receive. The slaves were on the lowest rung of Saint-Domingue society and consisted of field hands, domestic servants, porters, laborers, and servants, committing the most hard and servile labor in the colony. In 1789, they numbered close to 500,000, one of the most dense at the time. They outnumbered other groups combined of the colony by at least 10 times. Despite this, the colony was so prosperous that C.L.R. James says, and I quote, "The prosperity affected even the slaves. More of them could save money, buy their freedom, and enter the promised land." Above the slaves were the free blacks. These were former slaves or descendants of former slaves who had been able to gain their freedom. They were severely limited economically and politically, being restricted from land ownership and political activity, and were subjected to doing tasks such as maintaining roads and chasing fugitive slaves. In the mountains of the colony were freed blacks who were considered outlaws and were openly hostile to the colonial government. These were called the Maroons, who numbered roughly 3,000 to 7,000 in 1789. Above the free blacks were the mulattoes. These were persons of mixed ancestry, having varying degrees of black and white ancestry. Oftentimes, they were children of white men and black women. Interestingly, the French had multiple categories of mulattoes, up to 128 parts of white or black. A person with 127 white parts to one was still considered a mulatto. Like the free blacks, they were subjected to economic and political exclusion, although mulattoes had more economic success, with some having significant holdings and wealth, and even their own slaves. Combined with the freed blacks, they numbered around 29,000 persons in 1789. Above all of these groups were the whites. They had greater privilege and oppressed the other classes. The whites were split into two groups. There were the Grand Blancs and the Petit Blancs. The Grand Blancs, literally the big whites, were the planters, nobles, and royal officials on the island. And as in France, they wielded the most power. Below them were the Petit Blancs, or poor, or little whites. They consisted of the overseers, notaries, bureaucrats, merchants, clerks, attorneys, as well as the lowest of persons, such as criminals and vagabonds. On the basis of color, these were all in a higher social position than the rest of the population. Combined, they numbered just 40,000 persons, with just 2 regiments of French soldiers and local militia to protect them. In closing, C.L.R. James says, "This was San Domingo of 1789, the most profitable colony the world had ever known. To the casual eye, the most flourishing and prosperous possession on the face of the globe. To the analyst, a society torn by inner and outer contradictions, which in 4 years would split the structure into so many pieces that they could never be put together again." It is this wealthy but disjointed society that would erupt into the Haitian Revolution after the onset of the French Revolution. There's loads more to get into, so much of which will be its own video in the future. I just wanted to share these little known facts of Haiti, and I hope that my babbling taught you something new today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.